They say pressure bursts pipes. And the beautiful thing about content creation online is what you say gets recorded. So it's basically like breadcrumbs all over the internet sprinkled around. Everything I've said about Canelo, everything I've said about him fighting David Benavidez, the truth is here. The pressure amounts. The time is now. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. The walls are closing in on Canelo Alvarez. Payday, you want payday? I know that. David Benavidez has just released a new call-out video, and within the next minute, I will show you the call-out video from David Benavidez, and the man ain't playing no games with Canelo Alvarez. What can I say? David Benavidez on his verified social media posted quite the video.
Middleweight champion of the world, 3-time world champion. Now just give me the fight that we all want to see. Who wants to see David Benavidez versus Canelo?
Canelo Alvarez. It is clear with what you're saying.
He doesn't want to fight the Mexican marshal. He doesn't want to fight David Benavidez.
What I've been hearing, he's been running. Canelo been running.
My personal opinion, he's ducking Benavidez.
There's only one guy at that weight that can get an upset against Canelo, and that's a young man named
The Mexican monster.
David Benavidez.
That's the fight everybody wants to see.
When it's all said and done, he's going to be the one bending his knee to me after I take all his titles.
Boxing world wants to see him in the ring with Canelo Alvarez.
Everybody wants to see you against David Benavidez.
No more question because I'm a little mad.
We want you to fight right where you are against that dude in your weight division. David Benavidez deserves that. Fight that man.
I'm the youngest super middleweight champion.
David Benavidez, the Mexican monster, or as Mike Tyson says, the Mexican monster. Why did you do him like that? This edit showcased popular boxing personalities. You have former fighters in there, legend like Floyd Mayweather, easy work. I ain't got to worry about it. And I mean, the video speaks for itself. So make sure you guys follow David Benavidez. The video's on hhis page, Benavidez 300. And that video was just released earlier today. And need I say more? It's very clear. He had Stephen A. Smith, and I already made a video about what Stephen A. Smith, and he's been, credit to Stephen A. Smith. He's been saying it, just like Boxing Ego, but I've been saying it longer than Stephen A. Smith. But still, credit to Stephen A. Smith. He has talked about it for a decent amount of time. Canelo needs to fight Benavidez, and it's only growing stronger and stronger. And it's not just me and Stephen A. Smith. The world of boxing. You're seeing rappers on podcasts with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's talking about it. Floyd Money Mayweather, Jim Lampley. You know, we're talking about known heavy hitters in the sport. And of course, Benavidez is calling them out. So for me, this is a bad look for Canelo. And in the words of Lil Uzi Vert, this ain't what you want. This ain't what you want. I just want to rock. This is not what you want. David Benavidez is now going up to 175 pounds because Canelo chose to fight Jaime Munguia instead of him. I think the biggest mistake that Canelo has made with Benavidez is the fact that he was better off fighting Benavidez when Benavidez was even younger, you know, because then he was making mistakes, didn't have his weight in check, losing his belt on the scale multiple times, 2 times. So just that level of immaturity, you know, these decisions, these like growing pains that he went through, you might have been able to get him, you know, catch him slipping, like not, you know, you would have had the experience advantage. And you could still say Canelo has experience advantage, but that gap is now starting to close. Benavidez is becoming wiser. His experience and his resume is going up. Some would even say that Canelo Alvarez is fading and, showing signs of slowing down, whereas Benavidez isn't. He looked great in his last fight with Demetrius Andrade, who's a guy that was avoided, and Canelo is one of the people that avoided him. So I think Canelo should have tried to catch him. And it's funny because, listen, the Canelo man fans, when Floyd pieced up Canelo Alvarez, they said, oh, first of all, there were people who were picking Canelo to beat Floyd in real time. But after Floyd pieced him up, easy work, then they made excuses saying, oh, Canelo's only 23. Some people even lied about it and switched the age, which is what you see typically from Canelo man fans. They don't tell the truth, right? So saying stuff like, oh, Canelo was only 21 years old. He wasn't 21. He was 23. But Floyd destroyed him, made it look easy, right? And that's what Canelo should have done. Canelo should have tried to fight the 23, 24-year-old Benavidez. Now he's a father. He's a family man. His experience is going up. And he's also getting the crowd on his side. The crowd is starting to side with David Benavidez, right? The crowd is like, yo, Canelo, when you going to fight this dude? Meanwhile, Canelo's talking about give me 150 to 200 million, which makes absolutely no sense. How can you request that amount of money, but then at the same time try to denigrate Benavidez? And oh, these are some clean cars. You're trying to denigrate Benavidez's brand and act like he ain't ish, like he's not dope and he's not a good fighter and he's not worth your time almost. But then you're also requesting more money to fight him. And you're talking about his weight. He weighs 25 pounds. That sounds like fear. Why are you worried about this? Why are you worried about this man's weight? You're in the same weight class.
We're in Miami.
And I really can't wait. I'm about to cook Canelo. Because he tried it. This man is worried about Benavidez being 25 pounds heavier on the night of the fight, but he also acts machismo. Like he acts machista, and he's like, oh, I fight anybody. I don't care. I don't effing care. But he was also the same guy that said he wanted to fight at cruiserweight. He sent a BS offer to Badu Jack. So it's like, if you were trying to fight Makbook Air and Badu Jack at cruiserweight, then I don't want to hear anything about Benavidez weighs too much at super middleweight. As long as he makes weight on the scale, then he's golden. You know what I mean? So Canelo continues to have his fans look foolish by saying he don't want to fight a Mexican fighter. Oh yeah, his next fighter is a Mexican fighter, Jaime Munguia, right? So the jig is up. People know what it is. David Benavidez is looking like Debo, and Canelo got to answer that call. It is what it is. You want to be the face of boxing, it comes with something. To be the face of boxing, it comes with that bullseye on your back. Everybody wants a shot at the top dog. And this is not like, I don't get on these videos and start bumping my gums and lying. I'm not going to sit up here and act like Canelo's not a good fighter. I've never said that. And it's funny because people say, oh, Igor, you're hating on Canelo, but you've never heard me say that Canelo is not a good, crafty fighter. He's a good fighter. He's a good little fighter. But it doesn't change. You're the face of boxing. You say you're the face of boxing, so face the music and fight David Benavidez. We know you don't want to fight Artur Beterbiev, even though you have 2 fights now at 175, which is also a problem. Going back to my previous point, is how are you fighting at 175 against Kovalev, and then against Bivol? We've seen what he did to you, a guy who Benavidez sparred with, but you're willing to fight in the next division up, but you're worried about David Benavidez at 168 weighing too much on the night of the fight. But then when you're fighting Floyd Mayweather and you have the weight advantage, then you don't care. When you're fighting Amir Khan, who has absolutely no chin, and you're bringing him to Canelo weight of 155, then you don't care. But now you're worried about Benavidez's size. The bottom line is, I'm going to make it nice, short, and sweet for you. David Benavidez is lit. David Benavidez is a great fighter. He's a danger. Canelo knows this. Eddie Reynoso knows this. And I truly think Canelo is kind of a hater. And he doesn't want somebody of the Latino sort, you know, even though he's half Mexican, half Ecuadorian, he doesn't want to give the opportunity to such a lit Latino fighter. Now, yeah, he's given the opportunity to Jaime Munguia, but Jaime Munguia, to me, is not on the cusp of superstardom. The world has anointed David Benavidez, and people are saying like he's one tick away from being, you know, really that guy on pay-per-view. Canelo is fighting Munguia. I don't think he's ever fought on pay-per-view. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. And he has several fights where he arguably should have lost or had a tough time. Like Derevyanchenko, very tough fight, hurt in that fight. He gets hit a lot, right? And also the Dennis Hogan fight. He never rematched him. He definitely should have lost that Dennis Hogan fight, a guy Jermall Charlo easily beat. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Benavidez, and that Da Vinci Code on how to beat him is not so apparent. So we know what it is. Canelo Alvarez needs to face the music, fight DB, David Benavidez. Sick commercial or promo video from David Benavidez calling for Canelo to step up to the plate and, you know, fight him. And I think from now on, it's gonna grow. Here's the thing. The Munguia fight, I personally don't even think is the worst fight that Canelo Alvarez has had at all, by a long shot. Like I could think of several fights that Canelo has had that are far worse, like Rocky Fielding and Avni Yildirim. Yet and still, if you look through the comments, some people, they're saying like, man, boo, boo to the Munguia fight. The reason they're booing is because David Benavidez is the rightful suitor who we all know that Canelo should be fighting. So even fights with guys like Jaime Munguia, who kind of recently got up to super middleweight, he's shown more vulnerability in terms of like defense and lack thereof. And he's showed more ways you can kind of beat him. Like I said, Derevyanchenko, a guy that Jermall Charlo handedly and easily beat, he crushed Derevyanchenko. Munguia pulled him up to 168, where he's not even he's a middleweight from 160. And then, you know what I mean? He's going life and death with Derevyanchenko after he had wars with Jacobs, after he got crushed by Charlo, after the Triple G fight. David Benavidez, I mean, he's fighting the likes of Andre, who's very crafty, very tricky, and he's stopping him and forcing him to quit. Plus, I think another reason why Canelo's a hater is because you got a named person who's about to fight Jake Paul in Mike Tyson, who's anointed this guy, David Benavidez, as the Mexican monster. And Canelo, he kind of resents that because Canelo is from Mexico, and he don't want to give no guy named the Mexican monster an opportunity to beat him because he knows that fight is real. And if he loses to a guy who's already perceived as this Mexican monster, it's going to hurt his stock. And I'm not going to say that Canelo is, I don't think he's necessarily afraid to fight. Listen, I'm going to say this as best as possible. I don't think that Canelo's necessarily afraid to fight. I'm going to give him that respect because he's been fighting all his life since age 15. So I don't think he's like shaking as his wraps, as the war tape's getting wrapped around and the gloves are getting put on and he's shaking like a chihuahua. I don't think it's like that. I think Canelo realizes that this guy might have what it takes to beat you, and Canelo fears losing the crowd and losing his aura and losing the level of celebrity. Like even the paychecks, like these networks are still in the point where they're kissing Canelo's butt. But if you lose to Benavidez, especially if you were to lose bad and the severity of how you lose, let's say it's pretty bad, like if you get stopped or something, then I think Canelo is aware that it crashes his stock, and that'll be a major hit. Because a couple years ago, he lost to Bevo. So he can't really afford another loss in a few years, recent memory. And them big paychecks where people are like kissing his butt, like giving him 50 million for fights that aren't worth 50 or 30 million, I think it'll kind of be over. I mean, unless he rematches Benavidez, but at that point, then that could be like a retirement fight if he beats you in the first fight and then you just rematch him. So if he shows and proves that he's able to beat you, then yeah, you're going to get paid good for a rematch, but then that could be it if you lose again. You know what I mean? So I think Canelo doesn't want his aura to be wiped away. That's why Munguia is the safer choice. And I'm not saying that Munguia is 100% the easiest fight Canelo's ever had, because there's, you know, some things that Munguia can perhaps bring to the table offensively, but all in all, he picked the safer choice, and that was to go with Munguia. This is a guy more recently who got up to 168, had trouble with Derevyanchenko, as I said throughout this video. Benavidez has way faster hands and athleticism. It's just a different fight. And even myself, I've kind of critiqued Benavidez's his defense, but with his sheer hand speed and his power and his style, his defense is not as leaky as I thought, based on the fact of he's making you walk through fire to get with him. So therefore it like improves. It's hard to explain, but it kind of improves his defense because he's rangy and tall, so he can kind of get out the way of shots, because most of his opponents are a little bit shorter than him, or a lot shorter in Canelo's case. So he can kind of like keep you at bay and work the range. But aside from that, is he's throwing some mean stuff with hand speed, and you have to respect his power in this division of 168. So that becomes something else. And when you're under an onslaught in boxing, people tend to like shell up. You know, no one wants to get clipped up and hurt with the shot, for example. So at the end of the day, I think Benavidez makes fighters keep their hands in their pocket more because of his great offense. So that kind of inadvertently, at least, improves his defense, because guys that have like immense power, like Wilder, you know, really good power like Benavidez, it'll make you think twice about throwing a punch because you're so worried about what's coming your way. You know, the punches, you're just trying to like not get hit with nothing stupid. So I think Benavidez, like most punchers that throw, you know, heat, he makes people cautious about their punch selection. You know what I mean? Which helps his defense. And then his range and his height also helps it too. So I think it'll give Canelo a lot of problems. The chants from the maddening crowd are only growing larger. Like I told you, Canelo Alvarez, you gotta do something, baby. Subscribe. I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. For all boxing, all day, daily content, keeping it real with y'all, this is the channel.